Hello everyone and welcome to this week's video tutorial on opening theory. This will be the start of a 4 video series on one commonly seen opening that is played in Xiangqi in the central cannon versus greenhouse defense opening system. So without further ado, let us begin. Okay, central cannon. And in this board, black would choose to play p7 plus 1 and decide or choose the variation of either the third or seventh pawn. Now, this is usually well prepared beforehand, and red would usually play r2 plus 6 for a relatively proactive approach. Now, if he chose to push p7 plus 1, which is also okay, one option that black might take would be to push the cannon forward to form a blockade, threatening to attack the central pawn, and this could lead to many different variations, like the different opposite direction cannons, etc. So let's say if red played h7, h8 plus 7, black could consolidate his defense. This is still okay, but as can be seen, red's right flank would be under black's control, and it would be very hard for red to try to increase his initiative. So in this opening system that we're discussing, red will be proactive and play r2 plus 6. Black will go for greenhouse defense. Now, usually at this point in time, red will play p7 plus 1. Another option would be to play h8 plus 7 to develop his left flank. Now, this is also very commonly seen now. It will be one of the themes of this opening theory. Now, p7 plus 1 or h8 plus 7 are now the mainstream variations to be played at this point in time. Now, another option would be to go for the 5-6 cannons, and these were the moves that were given the book. Black would dislodge the red chariot, forcing it to retreat. Trade of material, and this would be a rather steadfast situation. Red will still have a slight initiative, but it would be very hard for red to try to crack open black's defense at this point in time. So this would be a relatively steadfast approach with c8 equals to 6. Now, as mentioned earlier, instead of p7 plus 1, red will play h8 plus 7, which is also commonly seen. Now, the downside of this move is that black had already played p7 plus 1, and if red played h8 plus 7, red would usually play p3 plus 1, so that he'll get development for both horses and limit the development of red's horses. However, uh, this would be the position of discussion for this game. However, red will be usually compensated by developing his left chariot or utilizing it very early in the game. Now, as can be seen, red would now have a foul chariot and a ranked chariot. So red's opening would usually be called the central cannon with foul and ranked chariots. Of course, both horses to develop as proper horses. Now, this is red's line of thinking would be to try to use his chariots to try to gain momentum for a relatively fast-paced attack. And black will try to slow down the pace of red's attack, because both horses and both pawns are now pushed forward, so that it would limit the development of red's horse. Now, the key issue now would be for both colors for red to try to speed up his attack, gain some advantage, while black will try to slow down red's attack in this manner. And one thing about this opening system is that since black had already played the third and seventh pawn, which are called the double-headed snake pawns, it is very common for red to try to develop his attack from the central file by pushing the pawn and linking the horses at the central file. So now, since red had played r9 plus 1, it would be very common for black to play c2 plus 1 to try to dislodge the red chariot. Red will usually retreat to the riverbank, although it would appear that red would have wasted a move, but black would also have to deal with the issue of this cannon later on. Black would consolidate his defense, and red would play p3 plus 1. By retreating this chariot to the riverbank, red would now try to trade pawns so that his horses can be developed. Now, an interesting point to note is that the old school method of playing would be to play p7 plus 1 instead of p3 plus 1. So what would happen? Black would push his other cannon forward. If the pawns were traded, the cannon would now be placed over here and attack the elephant. So usually red would not want to trade pawns and rather develop his chariot. And black will consolidate his central file further and be prepared to play r1 equals to 4 for the kingside chariot. And red will now attack the cannon, and black will simply retreat it to safety. So if r6 equals to 7, black will play r1 plus 2 to protect his horse and then use the cannon to counter attack. Now black would have a relatively very stable formation. And if if r6 equals 7 played after protecting the horse, black would also have c8 minus 1 to attack the chariot over here. So black's formation is very versatile, and there will be many options that could lead to very complicated situations in this spot. Now if p7 plus 1, let's say if red did not play r9 equals to 6 and chose to go for the 4-chariot rendezvous, both colors would trade, and this would lead to another very complicated situation. And as can be seen, black would have managed to eliminate this pawn, gain a pawn that crossed the river. So black would not have gained anything for his efforts. So that is why p3 plus 1 cannot be played in this situation. Okay, back to the board. So the old school method was p7 plus 1, but the newer modern way method would be to play p3 plus 1. And black would play c2 plus 1, which has been proven to be viable over time. And this move is more towards the defensive end, whereby after trading pawns, the cannon will move over here and black will try to concentrate material on this flank. And this would be the major position of discussion. In this board, as can be seen, red would offer a trade of pawns, and there will be two trades that are simultaneously going on. So this will lead to many complicated situations. And usually, black would push his pawn forward and to gain this very classical position. Now, choosing to trade pawns at this point in time for black would not be a good idea, because red would play p3 plus 1, move his horse to safety, and if the black elephant captured the pawn, red would simply play r9 equals to 7. Now this position was different from the previous one because black had not pushed the cannon forward. So in this situation, black cannot protect his pawn in this manner because red would play r2 equals to 6, and red would have to deal with the issue of the cannon, and the pawn would be blocked, and it will be lost after making so many moves. So that is why if let's just see this position and compare it a little bit earlier. Sorry. As can be seen, in this situation, the cannon had not moved to the riverbank, it was over here. So let's say if red played r9 equals to 7, if black tried to protect the pawn, and if red tried to block, black would have this move available, and the pawn would be safety, and that is why this would make a whole world of difference. So back to the main line, id plus 2. So Red will usually play r9 equals to 6. Black would play a4 plus 5 to consolidate his defense and try to offer a trade of Chariot. So at this point in time, two major variations are discussed. Variation A would be p5 plus 1. Variation B would be c8 minus 1. Now, before we continue, we will need to discuss the possibility of red playing h3 plus 4. Now, this is usually not recommended. So, because red black will trade pawns, sacrifice his horse. Black will have no qualms about sacrificing his horse, and then move his cannon over here to concentrate material over here. So, trade of capturing material. So basically, this will be a rather even situation which black can be very satisfied with. Now red, for all his efforts, would still be attacking the central file, but black's defense is already up, and the horse will now be a major threat in the game. Besides, the central pawn was about to be captured, and black can be, generally speaking, black can be very happy with this situation. So back to the main line. In variation A, red would, as mentioned earlier, would choose to start his attack from the central file by pushing his pawn forward and preparing to link his horses over here. Now, at this point in time, it has been proven that black would be best off with playing r1 equals to 3 for this rather implicit counter. Trading chariots with r equals to 4 would not be such a good idea because red would trade chariots and then start his attack by linking the horses up at the central file. Black would usually consolidate his defenses, and as can be seen at this point in this rather complicated situation, red would have the initiative. So that's why r1 equals to 4 would not be as good as r1 equals to 3. But nevertheless, this is a rather complicated situation on the board. Red continues attack with h7 plus 5. Black would push his horse to the riverbank. Trade off chariots. And at this point in time, black must be very vigilant and not let his guard down. But at this moment in time, black can be said to have achieved a rather desirable formation. The pawn cannot capture, or the cannon will capture the pawn back. And after trading chairs, this would basically be a rather even situation. But for the time being, black can be able to hold his own against red's aggression. So this would be variation A. Now in variation B, this would be one of the newer or better ways of attack for red. Instead of attacking from the center, red would retreat his cannon and make this cannon, or activate it, making it useful. Now this is a very nice and ingenious move which we will see later on. When the cannon is retreated here, once the chariot moves away, it could play c8 equals to 2, if need be, to gain material, c8 equals to 3, etc, etc. So black would draw first blood, and red would now threaten to capture the horse. Now, usually at this point in time, it would be advisable for black to sacrifice the horse. Now, this has become the trend. In the past, black would try to move his horse to safety. However, red would now prepare to attack and push the pawn forward and firmly claim the initiative. The horse would not have any good positions to continue to move, and black's chariots have not been activated, and basically speaking, this would favor red very much. So p3 plus 1 to trade the chariot, to sacrifice the horse, and what would have in the main line, it was given that red would have been better or easier for him to control the initiative by capturing the pawn. Now, capturing the horse, what would happen? Black would immediately sacrifice material and try to mount an attack, threatening the red horse. Now, if red retreated the horse, the check, and a very brilliant move by black, developing his chariot in this manner. If the cannon captured the chariot, it would be an immediate checkmate. So that is why red would get to develop his chariot in this manner. Black would try to retreat his chariot to take care of this pawn, but black will cleverly play c2 equals to 7 in this manner. So as can be seen, now the chariots, although black had sacrificed a piece, the chariot cannot move or cannot capture the pawn, or it will be an immediate checkmate. As can be seen, black would have an attack going on, and this would be quite a good bargain for black, and red would have to deal with the issue of his congested left flank later on. Now, if at this point in time, after black played c8 equals to 3 to attack the horse, if instead of retreating the horse, black chose to counter-sacrifice a piece, black would of course accept it, push the pawn forward to protect the cannon, and after trading material, this would be a rather even situation, which again black can be very satisfied with. So neither color would have pushed many pieces across the river, but black would have upped his defenses, and basically speaking, his chariots would have open lines to move. So black can be very satisfied with this position. So retreating back, r3 equals to 7 would have been better than capturing the black horse. And black would play c8 equals to 3. Red would advance the chariot, threatening to play perhaps to play r6 equals to 8, etc. Black would retreat his cannon. The power of this short rank cannon is now revealed. In this, red would now traverse it to attack this file. Black would protect the chariot in this manner. Now, this would be recommended. Now, it would not be a good idea for black to play h7 plus 8. Sorry, it would not be a good idea for black to play h7 plus 6. Because if he did, for example, let's say if black played h7 plus 6, red would be prepared to play h7 plus 8 or h7 minus 5 and to activate the chariot. Now, after activating the red chariot would be able to play r7 equals to 4, and black's efforts would have been wasted. So red will command an even greater lead. So that is why ra plus 2 would have been a better move. Now black will retreat his horse for defense. Black would double down on this file, offer trade of material, and after trading material, red would have the initiative. It would have the initiative going on, but generally speaking, black can still have a playable game. So a quick recap: the double-headed snake pawns. Black will develop his chariots as a file and rank chariot for attack, dislodging the chariot, retreating and preparing to trade pawns. Black will consolidate the defense, and p3 plus 1 is the new method of play. For chariot rendezvous with both black cannons patrolling the riverbank. So as can be seen in this variation, the key battleground will be the riverbank very early on. And this will be the position of discussion. In variation A, red will attack from a central file. Variation B, red will retreat the cannon for which can be used in a very versatile manner later on. Now, it would not be a good idea to play h3 plus 4. So a very quick recap. Central cannon. Red would advance the chariot across the river. Black goes for the screen horse, the proper horse, allowing black to play the pawn rank. Allowing black to play the double-headed snake pawns. But red will be compensated by developing his left check very early in the game, dislodging the chariot, retreating, protecting, choosing to play p3 plus 1. Black would choose to protect his pawn in this manner, and this will result in this very classical 4-pawn rendezvous situation. Black will usually play c8 plus 2. Again, the battle on the riverbank is very exciting. Red will play r9 equals to 6, a4 plus 5, and the first variation that we'll be discussing will be p5 plus 1. So let us see this from the eyes of black. Say in first variation 1, p5 plus 1, black will play a very implicit counter, r1 equals to 3, and after trade of material, black would be able to achieve this position, which he can be very satisfied with. And but the room or margin for error is very slim, because red would have a very powerful attack going on, and the black king was still left hanging in a rather dangerous position. Variation B, red will retreat the cannon for a very implicit and ingenious counter. Black could now play r8 c8 equals to 3, and after trading on material, red would have the initiative. Now, generally speaking, at this point in time, black's counter would still appear to be viable, but it would be a little bit passive as the chariot had not been developed. So I hope you've enjoyed this short video. This is one opening system which I have had trouble dealing with when I played red, and I hope that with this video series you'll be able to gain a little bit more insight to this rather commonly seen variation. I think it was in the 2010s whereby this variation suddenly became red hot. But since then, newer material came out, and the current method of playing this position is even slightly more advanced. So again, thank you, and if you like the work that I've been doing, please do subscribe to my channel and give me a thumbs up for this video. Thank you.